Hello and welcome to the Miko Bits show. And I'm your host, Miko Bits. And today we have Michael Wagner from Star Atlas. So we're very excited to hear from Michael and understand a little bit more about this cool project. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Miko. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, I guess, one of the things that is always exciting to hear about is just a little bit of how would you describe Star Atlas? And, maybe you can, show us a few things.
Sure. Yeah, would love to. So, I guess just starting off, I mean, we really think about Star Atlas as something that can be transformative not only to the gaming community but really to the global population. And that's a really bold statement to come out with just right at the inception. But generally speaking, what we're developing out is a grand strategy, space-themed, massively multiplayer online game. And we're coupling that with two things. One, we're integrating blockchain throughout the experience, which comes with a number of benefits for the players. And then we're also, long-term thinking, developing out a metaverse concept, which is a fully integrative, alternative virtual reality that people can persist within. And we can talk a little bit about some of the requirements to make that a reality. But yeah, we believe that this can be essentially an alternative life for someone, particularly when coupled with the financial incentives and rewards through blockchain, and then this fully immersive 3D gaming experience that we're building out on the Star Atlas side. So yeah, that's kind of high level what the ambition is.
Fantastic. I'm very excited about understanding more. I'm very excited about kind of what I call multiverse and also meta reality. So I don't talk about, the metaverse as if it were a singular thing.
Mhm.
But I think for me, I would love to understand more about the detailed mechanics, right? So I think you're proposing that people can, move into this environment. They can reside here, and here we have some wonderful screens that I'm seeing. So I'd love to kind of get a little more from you, in terms of unpacking some of the visuals and understanding kind of where we are with this project.
Absolutely. So I guess this probably isn't the best presentation format, but for anyone interested, this is the Star Atlas announcements channel. This is our official channel on Telegram. And we have a really nice history just of concept art that we've been creating over time. So as we progress along, you'll see that this was some of the initial character design that was concepted out. And we further developed character B and character E, both Ooster models. But as a starting point, I would mention that where we largely differentiate ourselves is first on the gaming side. We are developing this out to AAA quality standards. So we're shooting for the highest caliber of content, of storyline, of lore, of graphical fidelity. Essentially, building out a game that would be attractive and entertaining to a mainstream audience, with or without blockchain. So we don't
Wonderful.
necessarily consider ourselves to be a blockchain game per se. We're more of a mainstream game that comes with the added advantage of our long history and expertise in the blockchain and crypto space. So, just going from, say, here, this Ooster model, you can see that a little further fleshed out here. And we produce these work of progress shots. We're pushing these out about 4 times a week through all of our social media channels. But general game mechanics include space exploration, territory control, political conquest. And this is all really wrapped in that grand strategy genre. And where we start to incorporate blockchain mechanics is first and foremost with true asset ownership. So non-fungible tokens as the core kind of underlying foundation of the entire economy. Players will own all of their ships, their crew members, their modules, their components, the land that they own in the game, the buildings and structures they place on that land. All of these items are going to be, intrinsically owned by the player and live on chain. And we happen to be building on Solana for a number of reasons, but from the tech standpoint, Solana is very high transaction throughput, low latency, so sub-second finality on transaction or state change settlement, and further, it's incredibly low transaction cost at less than 1/100th of a penny per transaction. So from the tech side, they were capable of delivering the infrastructure necessary for us to build out this AAA quality game and deliver that on chain, with much of the experience actually living on chain, even much of the game logic. Now we have a bit of a hybrid model initially, where there are going to be some centralized servers, and then there's going to be the decentralized infrastructure that we leverage for asset ownership. But we are currently building out as much of the game logic directly on chain as possible, and integrating with Serum for most of that activity. So I'm just kind of flipping through some of the concept art here. This is, love this character. But so the other elements of blockchain include two crypto native assets, so Atlas and Polis. Atlas is our in-game transactional currency. It is functionally the in-game gold. It is the unit of account that people will use for all operating expenses, such as purchasing consumables, repairing or refueling ships, upgrading items or existing assets that they own. And it's also the primary mechanism of reward for the players. So when you go out and complete PvP or PvE missions, or when you operate mining equipment on land that generates ore that can then be sold back into the economy, what the NPC is providing back is Atlas. Now, Polis is our take on a governance token, and it in and of itself is actually dual purposed. So within the game, Polis is used for the political strategy component. Owners of Polis are able to dominate or control regions of space, and then they have exclusive rights to do things like impose taxes on other players that are actually operating in that space that maybe are not a part of the conglomerate that is controlling the region politically. They can also set some degree of fines, fees, rule, and law in the regions that they control. And where we see this being most likely to be utilized is through the guild structure. So when clans are in the game, they pull together their Polis resources. They can control regions of space and use that even as a recruiting tool for other players who might be interested in owning land in that region, but don't want to have to, say, pay a tax to somebody who they're not related with. And then outside of the game, Polis is most heavily focused on decentralized governance. So the players, the owners, will actually be able to influence long-term development decision-making. What that means is being able to submit proposals and cast votes for things like economic policy within the game, inflation rates, or asset release schedules. They'll also be able to vote on feature releases or product requests. And ultimately, this truly empowers the gamer and the holder of the governance token to be able to direct this game, the outcome of this game, to something that is most attractive to them. Now, from the external governance standpoint, we think it's going to take a couple of years for us to fully integrate that and implement it into effect, simply because we have a solid roadmap and plan, a strategy ahead of us of how to deliver the optimal experience for the gamer. And we know that we need to get to that point before we start allowing too much external influence to modify the intended outcome. So in the near term, Polis is used within the game. Long-term Polis will be used for long-term development decision-making. And then finally, we also have DeFi integrated throughout the game as well, including things like liquidity pools, automated market making, lending pools, and otherwise forms of yield generation and interest income that can be earned by players. So the idea is, I think by and large, DeFi is a gamification of finance. It's because of that, it actually becomes kind of interesting and fun to interact with money through these DeFi protocols. I think that that's really powerful, because otherwise finance and capital is kind of this boring, monotonous concept that people don't want to invest energy into understanding. But through DeFi protocols, through gamification of finance, and our further gamification by integrating it into a legitimate gaming experience, people will actually take interest in understanding how money works, how money operates, and how they can maximize income and yields for themselves. And so we're creating this really, empowering paradigm for people to be able to engage with a video game concept, earn interest, earn income, play to earn model, and also, improve financial literacy globally. So
Yeah,
pause there for a minute. That was quite a bit to unpack.
no, I'd love to kind of get a little bit even more. So, for me, I'd love to kind of understand a bit about how did this project get started, a little bit about yourself and your background, a
Sure.
little bit about what your kind of superpowers are, and so just would love to kind of understand a little bit more about you and the team and how this came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is really in the legacy financial space, CFA charter holder, and come from the field of portfolio management, investment and securities analysis. But I got introduced to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in 2013. And my inroad was through GPU mining of script coins, back at the tail end of 2013. Now, quick tangent, growing up, my formative years were spent in this computer gaming group. We called ourselves the Lanarchists. And, if you grew up in the 90s and you wanted to multiplayer game with your friends, by and large, you had to all aggregate to someone's house, bring your big tower and monitor over to someone's house, network those together. So local area network, and then you'd be able to play games all weekend. And that was kind of how we, spent our time. Most every weekend was just LAN gaming with buddies. And so, as a result of that, I have a pretty extensive background at just building out all of my own computers. I've always built my own computer. And so when my buddy was talking to me about GPU mining script coins in milk crates, it was pretty attractive. It was easy inroad for me, low barrier to entry for me to be able to figure out how to construct the equipment. And I saw script coin mining as a potential residual income stream. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I was actually, coming in right before the Mt. Gox collapse. I had put a bunch of money into these mining rigs, which, by the way, they were all over my house. I'm like blowing out circuit breakers left and right. I was living in Vegas, and so you can imagine how hot these things run, especially in the summer. So it was fun, but it didn't actually generate any real income for me. In fact, I realized the loss. But what it did for me was get me fascinated by the industry, by the ecosystem. And so I spent the next couple of years through the bear cycle just researching and learning as much as I possibly could about crypto. Went on to launch my first company at the end of 2016, which is a crypto and cannabis play. It's called Toke's Platform, or Multi-Chain Ventures is the umbrella that lives with under. And the idea with that company is to deliver this decentralized financial infrastructure to the legal cannabis industry, an industry that is kind of censored and does not have access to legacy financial infrastructure because of the disparity in state versus federal legalization. So that company is doing quite well. It's kind of standing on its own feet at this point. I have a team behind that entity, and in mid 2020 started to conceptualize the idea of Star Atlas on the basis of, well, there's a lot of momentum in DeFi. NFTs are seeing explosive growth. The team and I, who have worked together now for several years, are deep gamers ourselves. We have a passion and enthusiasm for gaming, and we saw a huge opportunity to create this. I don't want to say better experience, but maybe bigger experience than what we had seen in the crypto gaming space. I think it's still in the earliest stages of development, and we're seeing a lot of rudimentary style games that are either turn-based or card-based or in browser. And as I said, our vision for Star Atlas is to develop out this AAA gaming experience that we think will be pretty. It will attract a lot of that mainstream gaming audience actually to the blockchain and crypto ecosystem. We think that it's not vice versa. We're not leveraging on the crypto elites and people that are sophisticated in how crypto and DeFi works, we're actually trying to target the mainstream and attract them into the crypto ecosystem and educate them on how, they can derive benefit from true asset ownership of NFTs and fully, fungible crypto native currencies within the game, as well as the ability to participate and park rewards and cash into the DeFi protocols so they can actually maximize their own yield, right? So it's kind of like the game mechanics, but also the financial mechanics that are there that create this enhancement over to the gaming experience.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to learn a little bit about sort of the team experience in terms of, shipping games, because it feels like you're, talking about a AAA quality game title, and as we know, that's a exceedingly provably hard thing to do. So I guess I'd love to kind of understand sort of the team background with respect to developing and shipping AAA quality game titles.
Sure. No, it's a fantastic question. And from a personal level, this is the first game that I've ever worked on developing myself. But I give a lot of credit to the team and really the thing that's making us succeed so far. And I would consider us a pretty considerable success to date, just in terms of sales and our launch of our NFT marketplace and our poster sales, which we can get into and talk a little bit about. But Danny Floyd is our chief product officer, and he's been largely responsible for designing out things like the gameplay mechanics, the character creation, in fact, all of the concept art. His team is directly responsible for. He's got about 20 years of experience in AAA game development prior to working with me on multi-chain ventures. One of the titles that he worked on very early on in his career was Earth and Beyond, which was one of the first space-themed MMOs to come into existence. So we're really leaning heavily on him, and from a team development standpoint, we've gone from 4 people of co-founders back in December to well over 65 people today on the team. And I would say about 35 of those people are all on concept art, and we're moving into the production art roles now. So he's been entirely responsible for scaling that creative and design and product side of the company, which has allowed us to create all of this fantastic concept art, our poster series, and a lot of the materials that you see today. And also driving the kind of the roadmap for our mini game, which is intended to come out in July or August of this year. Now, the mini game is an in-browser experience itself, and what it does is allows players to engage in some of the gameplay loops, participate in some ship missions, but perhaps more importantly, they can actually deploy their assets that they're buying and start to earn interest, income, or yield off of those as early as August. And so this was incredibly important for us to be able to deliver touch points with the consumer frequently, regularly, and in an enjoyable format. So people aren't waiting 3 years for us to create the full immersive experience, right? We're actually creating something that provides value today. But so that's Danny. Jacob Floyd is our chief technology officer. He just has a tremendous background in mobile game development and web app development, site reliability engineering, DevOps, as well as managing our previous development teams. And then Pablo Quiroga is our chief operating officer, leading up a lot of our marketing efforts, strategic partnerships, business development. So we all kind of wear a lot of hats. But if I were to say my Superman talent is really just finding those people who are really good at what they do and making sure we put those people in place.
That's great, and very, very encouraging. So, would love to kind of understand a bit about sort of the economics, because you mentioned that people could move into this world. Obviously, you're saying that it could transform people's relationship with finance, and they could spend a lot of time in this world, right? So, I'd love to kind of get your take on the economics. Especially one of the things that's complicated about economics is that it tends to create open systems, and in a sense, the question becomes, how do you manage issues like pay to win?
Yeah, I think we're in a unique spot. I mean, we're, first and foremost, we are working with 2 external teams on economic analysis and development, as well as tokenomic analysis and development. I think we personally think we have a pretty robust model as a baseline, and then we're concurrently expanding our internal team. So hiring a chief economist internally, a couple data scientists, a couple of analysts that will help us continuously rebalance the game. Now it's very difficult to determine in advance exactly how everything is going to function, even from the econ standpoint. So it's important for us to get this mini game delivered as a playable experience in which we can kind of derive, well, first of all, data, but also user feedback, and based on that, make adjustments over time, and then also incorporate Polis into that process so that players are able to, or at least Polis holders are able to influence the outcome of these economics. So we've already talked a little bit about Atlas and Polis, the two in-game currencies.
Yep.
This, I don't know how deep we want to get into the specifics of this. This is our white paper that I'm looking at right now, and there's a ton of, fantastic data in here for anyone who's interested or hungry in learning more about how the economics will work. Some of this is still yet to be determined, but we're looking at it mostly from the primary driver of reward, which again is Atlas, and your ability to reinvest back into the economy to continuously compound and improve your potential to earn revenue. Now, where this gets a little more complex is that we actually do have this open, decentralized economy for which we don't have complete control. Now, I think there's pros and cons associated with that. Most games are terrible at managing their in-game economy, and they're also, tend to be hyperinflationary by nature. And so we have to control for that from the start. And we do, in the sense of we have a limited supply or finite supply of all of the assets that we're selling, first and foremost. And we also have a finite supply of currency. And so once we commit to a distribution schedule for that, it's going to be very difficult to change tracks at some point in the future. So this model is, I can tell you right now, is going to change a little bit. It was intended to be heavy distribution in year one, but I think we're actually going to take a year to 2 years to slowly distribute Atlas to see kind of how the economy is functioning. And then we'll ramp it up for a period. And we also want to make sure that when people are playing the AAA quality gaming experience, there are rewards still available for them. And again, that will take several years for us to fully complete, but expecting to have the first version of that available in July or August of 2022. So we talked a little bit about Polis and how that will work in governance. And then I think what I'll do is kind of skip down to our stakeholder chart. There's once again a lot of great information in this. This describes a little bit about how we think about our position as a stakeholder in the ecosystem versus the other two, immediate stakeholders, which include token holders and then gamers. Gamers are inherently token holders because they by and large require the tokens to be able to play. So token holders you can think of as primarily speculators. And what they care about are things like price appreciation and the ability to generate yield. We in the middle act very much as a centralized game development company, a traditional organization, which is really necessary to develop out a product as complex as what we're building today. Committee or consensus by committee doesn't really work when you have a vision that's as broad as ours, right? And so the starting point for us is to build this as a centralized game development company in which we care about things like asset sales, which are ship's crew, land, etc. Currency sales are the Atlas and Polis tokens, and then building up value in our company, goodwill and brand equity over time. Now, the way we actually create alignment with the decentralized economy, that is the token economy and the NFTs, is to provide these support mechanisms such as either buy and burns or asset distribution based off of in-game revenue. And we also have a pretty unique mechanism here that we're developing out, which we call a universal automated market maker. But the reality of the function is that we effectively take game revenue and we deposit it into this liquidity pool, but only on the buy side. And so over time, as you can imagine, if we're generating more revenue, the value in that pool continues to increase. We never take away from it. We only contribute to it. And so the theory is that it will create a fundamental floor for which the value of the tokens cannot drop beneath, because every token could be sold into that pool to be liquidated. So using a very basic example, if there were 100 units in circulation and $100 in the pool, then every unit could be sold back to the pool for $1, at which point those units would be destroyed, they would be burned, and everybody would have an effective exit from the game economy. So yeah, and then where we also derive value is that in-game expenses come back into us in the form of these tokens. So when people are actually, repairing their ship or refueling their ship and spending Atlas or spending Polis within the game, that comes back into us as a developer, which we then have the optionality to liquidate at some later point. And we're still developing out the governance model surrounding that. But yeah, I think what's important here is we have a very close synergistic relationship with the decentralized economy, which we directly support financially, and at the same time, we directly benefit from financially through the recirculation of tokens back into us.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm really curious about getting sort of right into the heart of the matter, right? Which is one of the issues with kind of integrating DeFi and financial services and NFT purchasing, into this kind of, meta game level. Like, how do you deal with, pay to win? Like, it still feels like the biggest wallet may actually rule your game. And if that does turn out to be the case, then it doesn't provide much of a respite from reality, right? Because in a sense, that's the game everyone plays every day, which is, just getting beaten up by other people's big wallets.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think of it as pay to win. I do think of it as kind of I hesitate to use the term, but invest to earn. So certainly players who invest more capital into game assets have a higher return potential, but I can't give you like a solid answer immediately in terms of how we're going to rebalance the game to ensure that everyone has a fair chance. But that certainly is the objective, and it's a big open world, right? So it's not like everyone will be forced to go into the same zone to interact with one another. There's plenty of opportunity to explore space and find a way to earn for yourself that would be proportional to whoever is spending, so say the whales in the room. You can spend $10 to get into the game, or you can spend $1 million to get into the game. Your earning potential is going to be increased based on the amount that you invest into those assets. But that doesn't mean that the $10 player doesn't have a fair chance of going out and earning, a living wage for themselves, which is really the objective, is to actually provide people the opportunity to live entirely and earn entirely from the game itself. So, we're also working pretty intensely to facilitate the cultivation of these guilds, the clan system, making sure that people are teaming up, working with groups like Yield Guild Games, Gabby Dyson, right? So, I think what they're doing is fantastic. They're pooling resources for the gamers that are part of their group. That in and of itself is going to enable them then to have so much more say power within the game, and it's not only the capital resource going in, but it's the mental resource. It's the strategy that they're able to develop out as a team collectively that they can then deploy within Star Atlas, that's going to make them a force to be reckoned with. And anybody can do that. People in our Discord today are already forming their own clans and recruiting people, even though we're still quite a ways out from the fully playable version of the game. So I think that's where we start to see the equilibrium, is through this clan formation, through the pooling of resources and the execution of strategy. It is important for us as a developer to create that balance. But once again, this is where I think the decentralized governance models have a lot of weight, is we're going to give people the option to vote on changes that need to be made. And obviously we need to take that information objectively and not vote, or not implement a change that benefits anybody individually. But it is just another tool that players have then to be able to kind of determine the outcome of the game. We do
Yeah,
have
I'm very excited about the future of decentralized governance, and of course, yield guild game first for games first disclosure. Obviously, we did have Gabby on the Miko Bits show, but as well, my fund is invested in yield guild games. Just to let the audience know. But please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and we also have a pretty cool deflationary model within the game, not only from the kind of like the asset burn, but from the way that we've designed out the faction system and these security zones within the factions. So we've defined 3 factions: a safe zone, a medium risk zone, and a high risk zone. Naturally, as you progress through the security risks, your ability to earn income is also higher. So for example, moving into the medium risk zone, you will be other players will be able to attack you and destroy you, or they'll be able to attack your land equipment and take it offline. But it's non-permanent death. You will respawn. You'll just need to repair your equipment. However, the highest revenue generating zone in deep space, which is the high risk zone, is actually more of a hardcore mode. If you go out there, it is permanent death. So if you lose an engagement with another player, and your ship gets destroyed, it will literally get burned off chain. It will get destroyed from the economy in its entirety. And the other player that won that engagement will have the ability to then recapture or salvage some of the items that were on your ship. Now, the ship that was destroyed, that deflationary element actually is to the benefit of every other player across the game, with the exception of the person that lost their ship. It's kind of like people that have lost their Bitcoin wallets historically, and I think Satoshi's comment was essentially that, that it just creates more value for every other coin that is in circulation that people actually possess. So that's kind of the way we think about the economic benefit, but that doesn't exactly address your question about game balance and how do we ensure that it's not strictly pay to win. But the honest answer is we don't have that resolved yet, but it is incumbent on us to be able to develop out that balance based on what we look at are numerical values. And that's kind of how we're basing everything right now. So everything comes down to a basic score, and it's just a raw numerical value. And then we use those figures algorithmically to determine, how powerful or weak or specialized an asset is.
Yeah, and I really do like this idea of having kind of a deep space or a rim world, or have some kind of zones that kind of really enable players to engage according to their own interests and desires, right? So I think if they want the excitement of that kind of permadeath type of environment, I think that's a very welcome addition to any kind of a game environment. So I really feel like people should have the ability to consent to operating under rule sets that sort of govern action locally. So I think those are some really innovative and beneficial solutions, and I think that's really, I think, contributes to the longevity of a very large community that may be segmented in terms of their gameplay goals.
I think the hardcore mode is a feature that's largely disappeared from gaming in recent years. One of the earliest games that I was MMOs that I was playing was Ultima Online, and it was ruthless. It was cutthroat back in those days, and it was also exhilarating. Now this is a little bit different because there's also this significant capital resource kind of injection that's necessary to be able to play. So you have real hard dollars at work, not just time. So will be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm expecting these large bands of players that are kind of floating around in deep space together. I wouldn't anticipate anybody out there on their own, but yeah,
Yeah, it is, and it's a good shout out to Richard Garriott and the whole Ultima series. Definitely was a OG player, both of UOL as well as the previous Ultima series that were kind of very seminal in the creation of the kind of fantasy video game genre. So, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been an incredibly informative and exciting time. So, I hope people will, start jumping in. So where are the best places to follow? There may be just a website jumping off point where people can get into your Discord or read the white paper. So just let us know how we can follow you and how we can, keep in touch with your progress.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest point is really just staratlas.com as our primary website. And we have links to all of our social media, very active in Telegram, very active on Twitter. We also have we're publishing a bi-weekly Atlassian newsletter, as we call it. We actually just released one yesterday, so that's on Medium. But you can find all of those links directly on our website. I would be remiss as we're winding down if I didn't at least point this out to people. We are running our very first NFT digital art collection sale currently. It's called Rebirth, Genesis of a Metaverse. It's a series of 14 posters that we sell over 14 weeks. And these are all multimedia meta posters, as we call them. So I'll share with you just one video, but for example, as you go into the experience, you can scan this with your device in either Instagram or Facebook. Just scan it with your camera. It'll pull it up in one of those applications. And each one of these posters is enhanced with augmented reality. So it creates this really immersive three-dimensional depth and animation. Again, I'll share with you a recording of that, but so it's augmented reality, and then we've coupled it with audio soundscapes. So on this first one, we worked with Blondish and Jason Silva to produce an audio track and then voiceover for that audio track. So the idea is that through the course of these 14 weeks, we're actually unveiling the lore, the genesis of Star Atlas and how we got to where we are in the year 2620. So just want to quickly show you here just the most recent poster. We are on poster 4 right now. Where did we go? Okay.
Awakening is going to allow us to stargate beyond the bounds of the imagination, to literally become starlight. This metaverse will augment our minds and augment our world and finally allow us to show awakening. It's going to allow us to stargate beyond the bounds of the imagination.
So in any case, it's just a really, really fun experience. A lot of people have been sharing these on social media. It's kind of the ability to capture this historic moment in time. As we said, the genesis of a metaverse. I think where we're at right now in game technology, game engine technology, decentralized finance, and blockchain and cryptocurrencies, we are probably in the best position we've ever been in to be able to bring the metaverse to reality, and we're thrilled about that prospect. And Miko, sincerely appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. What a wonderful closing note. And, it is absolutely great to spend time with the leaders and visionaries of building these metaverse experiences and economies. So, it's absolutely fun and great to have you on the show. So welcome to come back at any big announcement or any boundary that you think would be a great update for what we've seen today.
That's great. We should have more game content, game footage, coming up in July surrounding the launch of that mini game. So it might be a great time. Would love to share that with you and your audience.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.